Greetings, and welcome to Movie Recap Vault. In this session we're presenting a recap of the 2009 action, thriller, and sci-fi movie Surrogates. The primary manufacturer of the robots is the company VSI, founded by Lionel Kanner. He becomes famous and is praised. After the corporate board of directors ousts him, he becomes a disgruntled recluse. After the U.S. Supreme Court ruled that surrogates could be used in daily life, robots were produced to take over the roles once performed by people. These synthetic bodies, commonly referred to as surrogates, are operated through neural signals transmitted via the reclining chairs occupied by the operators of the surrogates. While individuals remain securely within their homes, their surrogate counterparts carry out the operator's existence. This shift in humanity has resulted in a significant decrease in crime rates, an overall enhancement in living conditions, and a reduction in race and hate crimes. Recently, a group of individuals known as the Dreads has emerged to oppose the use of surrogates. Dread reservations or surrogacy-free zones have been created within cities worldwide, where they have united under the leadership of Zaire Powell. Over the phone, the chauffeured man thanks his father for the use of his surrogate. He needed a break from school. He hangs up and suggests the driver take him to a club, instead of the opera. He mingles and enjoys himself. He and a lady step into the back alley to get friendly, but an unexpected person wearing a helmet interrupts their moment. The man dismisses the helmet person, calling him a meatbag. Suddenly, a surge of electricity envelops the man and lady, and the helmet person quickly leaves on a motorcycle. The situation attracts the attention of the FBI. Agent Peters and Agent Greer arrive at the scene. They discover that the man and woman that were electrified were both surrogates. The surrogates exhibit signs of unusual damage, with their eyes burnt out. Greer also notices that the memory chip of the male surrogate is fried. A police officer informs them that the male surrogate lacks proper registration. The female is assigned to someone, but no reports of damage or destruction have been reported by the owner. Greer and Peters investigate the apartment of the operator of the female surrogate. They discover her operator is a male, found dead in his operator chair. Greer examines the last image captured by the female surrogate. She witnessed the male surrogate's eyes being scorched and shattered before the feed abruptly terminated. Later, Greer returns home, and we discover he's a surrogate. After his surrogate is parked in its charging pod, Greer leaves his bedroom and enters a child's room. After leaving the child's room, he encounters his wife's surrogate, Maggie. Greer suggests they have a vacation together, and they leave their surrogates behind. His wife becomes upset. She argues that they are already together every day. Greer emphasizes that it's their surrogates who spend time together. Maggie insists that this arrangement is preferable. In a San Diego college dormitory, two guys find their friend Jared dead. Stone, the FBI supervisor, briefs the station on the unsettling discoveries. Stone wants to avoid a public panic, and asks the agents to keep information about the fried surrogates confidential. Greer and Peters review footage obtained from the surrogates and identify an individual carrying a weapon. Greer informs Stone that the case may potentially involve a homicide. Shortly thereafter, they receive a phone call informing them that Jared happens to be the son of Lionel Kanner, the trailblazer in the field of surrogacy. Greer and Peters visit Lionel's home. They're guided inside, where one of Lionel's surrogates greets them. Lionel had offered his son Jared the use of any of his surrogates. Peters emphasizes the vital importance of not permitting other users to borrow surrogates that are registered to different individuals. Peters' line of questioning agitates Lionel, but Greer diffuses the situation by revealing that he too had experienced the heartbreaking loss of a child. Greer assures Lionel their sole objective is to unravel the circumstances surrounding Jared's death. Greer wants to know if Lionel thinks there's someone who wants to harm Jared. Suddenly, Lionel realizes that he may have been the target, not Jared. The killer probably didn't know that Jared was operating the surrogate, not Lionel. Lionel becomes overwhelmed with emotion. Greer and Peters go to VSI to meet with their corporate representatives. Greer wants to know if there have been any occasions when a surrogate's head exploded, and its operator died. The VSI representatives become defensive, and don't answer directly. Instead, they deflect and talk about preventative safety measures. Greer gets frustrated, and he and Peters leave the meeting. They then visit a VSI engineer, and have him examine the damaged chip removed from Jared's surrogate. The engineer suggests all circuits must have activated simultaneously. The engineer informs them that a shipment of surrogates from the military had arrived with missing optical components and chips. Greer and Peters visit a military base and observe surrogate soldiers engaged in combat on the battlefield. During the skirmish, one of the surrogates is hit and incapacitated, but its operator swiftly switches to another surrogate. The Army colonel reassures Peters and Greer that any weapons used against a surrogate would not harm the operator. Back in the FBI office, Peters identifies the individual wielding the weapon in the video footage. His name is Miles, and he doesn't use a surrogate. They then meet a non-surrogate technician named Bobby. Bobby informs them that Miles has been located. Greer is in a helicopter coordinating with a pursuit team, while Peters remains with Bobby to keep tabs on Miles' movements. Bobby informs Peters that locating Miles was a straightforward task, thanks to their access to all surrogate feeds within the city. Suddenly, an alarm blares, and Bobby witnesses a man harming a woman through the surrogate's perspective. He quickly reports the incident and urgently requests the immediate deactivation of the aggressor's surrogate. Bobby receives the disconnection authorization quickly, and shuts down the surrogates involved. Peters is astonished. She wasn't aware that surrogates could be remotely deactivated, leading her to question the legality of the procedure. Bobby dismisses Peters' concerns. Meanwhile, Miles races through the city streets on his motorcycle, pursued closely by police cars. He speeds through traffic, narrowly avoiding collisions with oncoming vehicles. Greer keeps tabs on the chase from a helicopter. Ultimately, Miles crashes in a narrow alley, finding himself cornered. As a swarm of police officers approaches, Miles unleashes a surge of electricity that engulfs the nearby officers. The police surrogates collapse, their eyes popping out from the intense shock. Miles then directs the weapon toward the helicopter, causing it to go into a sudden descent. Greer swiftly disconnects from his surrogate to escape the danger of being killed. The helicopter's surrogate pilot is electrified as the aircraft spirals out of control. Miles enters a dread reservation, while the helicopter continues its uncontrolled drift towards the same area. Greer reconnects with his surrogate, shortly before the helicopter crashes into the Dread's territory. Emerging from the wreckage, Greer's damaged surrogate pursues Miles. The Dread community are infuriated by the intrusion of a surrogate into their reservation, and begin chasing Greer. Greer demands that Miles surrender the weapon, and Miles complies, handing over a bag to Greer. Before Greer opens the bag, a powerful shotgun blast sends him reeling backward. Miles seizes the bagged weapon once again, and stumbles away. A woman, branding Greer as an abomination, shoots him again. Greer quickly disengages from his surrogate. He tumbles out of his operator's chair and onto the floor of his bedroom. He desperately calls for Maggie, and she rushes to his side. Later, Miles regains consciousness and finds Powell and his associates ransacking his residence in search of the weapon. Powell interrogates Miles about the weapon's origin, and Miles admits that he doesn't know. A news report reveals that Powell considers the helicopter crash an attack on the Dread community. He declares a revolt against surrogate users. Meanwhile, Greer awakens in the hospital, and Stone informs him that he's been suspended from duty, because he violated the treaty with the Dreads. Stone assures Greer that he will personally oversee the case, and advises him to focus on recuperation. Furious about the FBI's decision, Greer leaves the hospital. Peters meets Greer outside of the hospital, and they begin the journey back to the FBI office. Greer visits the Dread reservation, anticipating easier access now that he's not utilizing a surrogate. Once inside, he sees his surrogate crucified and learns of Miles' death. Greer approaches Powell, but Powell's goons get violent when Greer refuses to leave. When Greer asks about the weapon, Powell responds with a mocking laugh and offers a sarcastic response. Frustrated, Greer leaves. Powell retreats into his trailer to retrieve the weapon he took from Miles. As Greer stands by the roadside outside of the Dread reservation, a car pulls up behind him. A young man inside the car reveals himself as another surrogate controlled by Lionel. Lionel explains that he can't use his regular surrogates due to the attempted attack on his life. Greer tells him Jared's assassin is dead, killed by Powell. Lionel suggests that uncovering the weapon's origin could lead them to those who wanted him dead. Lionel thinks the Dreads lack the capability to produce such a weapon, due to the extensive research and financial resources it would require. Greer returns home, and he has a heated argument with Maggie. Greer wants his authentic wife, not a surrogate. Maggie thinks the circumstances have evolved, and she is no longer the same person she once was. Frustrated, Maggie retreats to her room, where she gazes at her reflection. Removing her goggles, she starts to weep while seated in her operator's chair. Greer returns to the FBI office and uncovers information about VSI's involvement in a military weapon contract. The contract was abruptly terminated, but the specific reason remains classified. Later that night, an intruding surrogate visits Peter's home. It sifts through recordings of Peters' visual experiences, getting information about Bobby and the police's ability to access the feeds of all surrogates. The intruder then assassinates Peters and transfers remote control of her surrogate to the controller of the intruder. Peters' surrogate, now controlled by an unknown operator, departs its docking station at the FBI office. Greer visits the colonel he and Peters had met earlier. Greer shares an image of the weapon, and wants information. The colonel tells him the information is highly classified. VSI made the weapon to kill all surrogates on the battlefield, and their operators. After the weapon was tested, the units were all supposed to have been destroyed. Greer tells him Powell now has won. The colonel tells him the military is now in charge. They'll get the weapon from Powell. In the Dread's territory, Powell gives the boxed weapon to his goons, and tells them to give it to Agent Peters in the federal building. Greer visits Maggie at her work, and apologizes. She doesn't want to argue. As she tunes out Greer, her surrogate freezes in pause mode. In her bedroom operator's chair, Maggie grabs some pills. Army soldiers on helicopters are en route to visit the Dreads, and get the weapon. After a brief firefight, the soldiers neutralize Powell and some of his goons. We discover that Powell is actually a surrogate, and his operator is Lionel. Agent Peters' surrogate shares with Greer that Stone is a dirty cop, and he was working with Miles. Greer visits Stone and accuses him of giving Miles the weapon to kill Lionel. Greer thinks Stone is working for VSI, who wants to eliminate Lionel. Greer removes Stone's chip, and accesses Stone's classified files. He then quickly departs Stone's office. The angry human Stone calls his office administrator, and demands the agents capture Greer. Greer sneaks into Lionel's home, and discovers his concealed chambers. Various surrogates available for Lionel's use are docked in the hallway. There's a Powell surrogate, and the surrogate that murdered Peters. Lionel points his weapon at Greer, and wants to know if Greer misses human emotions. Lionel tells Greer that as a service to humanity, he plans to eliminate the use of all surrogates. Lionel believes surrogate users have become lifeless, and they have a perverted addiction. As a computer warning is given for the near completion of the virus upload, Lionel swallows a cyanide pill and dies. Greer gets into Lionel's operator chair and takes control of Peters' surrogate. Greer tells Bobby that he's now controlling Peters' surrogate. Bobby tells Greer how to stop the virus from killing all of the operators of surrogates. All human operators of surrogates worldwide will now survive the virus, but the surrogates may still be destroyed. With only seconds to spare, Bobby guides Greer through the process of saving all surrogates. Greer only needs to press one key on the keyboard to save all surrogates worldwide. Greer doesn't press the key, and all surrogates are deactivated. The streets, offices and subway cars are all littered with motionless surrogate bodies. Humans re-emerge and witness the aftermath. Greer reconnects with Maggie. Humanity has now been returned to prior times, when human-to-human personal contact was a desired and important life experience. The end. Please subscribe and like the video if you'd like to see more. Thanks.